I'm asked the question, why did you start a herd? What was the drive behind it? What was the force? What is the decisions? Now, the main decision was that we had an increase of elephant orphans during 2016. And as the elephant orphans needed space, people contacted me because we do have the herd of elephants. We raised some elephant orphans, and that basically steered the people to us. Now, getting all those phone calls and how to handle that, looking after elephants are not only interesting, but it is also a huge responsibility. We've got Sebakwe here behind me. Now he is 36 years old. He's one of our oldest elephants. He came 20 years ago and he was much smaller than he was now. That's one of the reasons, is I need to put something into place that the elephants can be cared for, even if I'm not here, even if the carers that's currently working hand in hand with me. And they're also agreeing that they needed a home. So they needed a home. We also needed to look at how to strategically develop this whole unique, not only an orphanage, not only a rehabilitation center, but a place where we can care for elephants and one day reintegrate them into spaces that we need to search for. So first thing, looking after elephants, is you need a very strong, dedicated elephant carer team that knows elephants, that actually grow old with elephants. I always say to people, it's not only a job, it's a career that we had. We also had already a herd of elephants. So having the babies coming in, it actually made sense, because these elephants, you've got the matriarch, you've got allo mothers, they have knowledge that we don't have. I don't have it. So working actually with the elephants in creating a safe haven for little elephants, that they are safe, that they also learn from the best, and that is from other elephants. Now, all these elephants, or most of them, are orphaned elephants. They either came from poaching situations or culling situations. Not all of them I know. Not all of them I actually hand raised or were part of their development phases. But I do know that elephant needs elephants. Just from babies on, with the developing of the whole, if I can call it a sanctuary, is to have the little ones close by the bigger elephants, that they can hear the elephants, that they can smell the elephants. You must just remember, they just went through so much trauma. They lost their family. They are dehydrated. Most of the time, it's from human-animal conflict situations, and that's also the case in the elephants we take in at herd. Only from elephant-human conflict. That would be situations where humans have created a situation and left the baby elephants as orphans. And then as they come to us, we've got an orphanage. The orphanage exists then out of an area where they can sleep in, and where carers can also sleep in. It's got a kitchen area where we make the milk. Also, what I brought on board is an advisory committee in several fields, because I don't know everything. My background, I studied accountancy, and I've been a mother. So that's the two things that I know. I've hand raised several Rhino orphans, cheetahs. So I've been in wildlife in that regard and spent a lot of my youth with animals. And I think for that I'm grateful, because I learned a lot through those experiences. Maybe not always appreciated when all my friends went out to a party and I had to sit you know, on the farm with none of my friends. They're all out. And I spent my time then with, you know, among the wildlife that we cared for. So on rhinos, I usually say, you know, explain to people that rhinos are easy to hand raise. They're easy to release. I don't say there are any challenges. Yes, there's definitely challenges in hand raising rhinos. But for a rhino, if you have the formula, you've got a great success rate in hand raising the rhinos. For 18 months, they do drink milk, and then also the reintegration process is not as difficult. However, the area, the habitat where you release them is a challenge because they need to be safe. Now, also with rhino orphanages, there's several in South Africa, and it is great because we're all spreading the risks. Just imagine if a poacher comes into an orphanage and they kill all the orphans, and that would take a huge chunk out of our genetic diversity for rhinos. Elephants are totally different. You sit with an elephant that's a sentient being. It's amazing and intelligent animal. I think sometimes they're more intelligent than us humans. So how do you take it? How do you develop a management plan that has never been existed in South Africa? It was a challenge. So one of my first people that I approached was Prof. Rob Sloto. He is not only very well known in research in elephants and in the elephant world, he's very well known, but he's also involved at the KwaZulu-Natal University, where he was dean from the medical department. So I approached him. I do think, you know, he did say, Adine, you are totally mad, but I do think you've got a point there, and I will help you to create a good plan to care for these animals and elephants to come. Well, I had to sit down for hours and hours with him, and for me it's very difficult to sit still for a long time. However, he gave me so much vision. He's really one of my anchor people in the development of herd, what our principles or our objectives were, which were unbelievable to work with him so closely. So he's one of my advisors on my committee. I also have a specialist in neonates who helped me developing the animal of the elephant formula. Now the elephant milk formula is extremely interesting. So over the 4 years of elephants, your milk changes throughout the 4 years. It's a high protein, high fat milk formula, but you need to adapt frequently throughout the growing up phase, especially in the beginning. It's very difficult because the little ones come in, they are stressed, and because they're so intellectual, they're very sensitive as well. So any changes, they develop diarrhea, and so that's one of the things that is a challenge in the elephant babies that you take care of. Anyway, I think let's walk down here and then I'll chat with you as we go. The milk formula of the elephant orphans are not only complicated, but it's also not easy to get the supplements in South Africa or around. It's not just from the shelf, and as I say, it changes. So it was very valuable for me to have a pediatrician come on board. So Dr. Ricky only came on board a little bit later. However, during the last stages of Kanisa, I played a tremendous role. And also when we had another orphan in Fenya, just to bounce back ideas. I need those scientific way of looking at things. You can't only just look from one side. And before that, also had people, professors from the University of Pretoria that was involved in animal feed that also assisted me. But because of the complications of feed and the little ones that is very sensitive to a lot of the ingredients, it actually spiraled, and that is how we got the pediatrician also involved. So it's not only about animal feed, but also about more sensitive, that babies, for example, with very allergic reactions to milk products, and bouncing back ideas in that regard. Then also we needed our environmental management plan. How do we care, for just on the elephant side? If we've got elephants, how many elephants can we take care of? What is our maximums? Where are we going to release? So there's a lot of things. And also, how do the facilities look like? Just look at this, where it's open area. These elephants can browse around, they can feed around, and they've got plenty of space to go. So this is an area that we haven't feed in for quite a bit. It's very nice and lush, but we need to take care of the land as well. As if we don't take care of the land, that land won't look after the elephants in the years to come. So it is a very sensitive area as well, and that is where we have the biologists that specialize in your nature conservation, in the game reserve management, because you also need to take into account the other species that also share this land with the elephants. So that's Pisa in the background. You can also hear the rumbles. Now, one of our things that we had to address as well is that we don't breed with elephants in captivity. It's a no-go in South Africa, and it's a no-go in South Africa to breed with elephants in captivity, which I do agree on, because it's not only about me and how I do it, but you need to be an example for other entities. If you're the first, you need to be the go-to, you need to be the example, you need to be the leader. And if you don't do it 100% and you don't bring into account all the variables that can make a difference in the elephant's life, it won't be successful. So that was one, of the things as well, that we do put our elephants on contraception. There's a lot of debate around that. It's not an easy discussion. It's not an easy solution as well. So therefore as well, we do have people involved from the University of Pretoria's veterinarian department, as well as bouncing back ideas with other people. There's reserves that also put elephants on contraception. But we must also remember that we do have carers. We've got humans and animals that work and live closely together. So that we needed to attend to. Also, what do we believe in? What is our ethics? So that's one of the things I always say to people is, I'll do the best that I can. I might make silly mistakes, but it's not intentional. It would be decisions that's also well thought through, that I've got reasons for making decisions. And so it's about ethics as well. I've got an ethics committee who helps me, even with research proposals that come in. Is it valuable? Is it something that will help elephants and wild elephants as well? This herd is, I would nearly say, they're ambassadors in their existence, in helping other elephants around the world. So anything research-wise is that it's not intrusive, that it's overseen also by a university with the ethics committee, and then also our ethics committee will look after these requests, and it will be a dedicated a proposal, as well as someone from the university that oversees that. It would be maybe a master's or a PhD. Really depends on, you know, what we receive. But as I said, it must also contribute towards wild elephants, to the wild elephant conservation. Sure, there's so many things that I want to say, and what, you know, what's going through my head as well. But there were loads of reasons that the existence of such a facility was needed. A lot of people still say there's too many elephants in South Africa. Maybe there are too many elephants in South Africa, but if we look worldwide and we look at the whole of Africa, the elephants' numbers are really declining. And we, you know, where you look at rhinos, 30 years ago, when there was a rhino poached, the mother, the baby were also shot in game reserves and national parks. That was changed now. People now take the orphans from rhinos that were poached. They look after them because that's genetics. That's genetics that we lose. Now, once again, it's not the same with elephants in that regard. You can't really compare apples with pears. However, where I'm heading towards is that we can't wait for 30 years and then sit with two little elephants, or, you know, elephant problems. And then what do we do? How do we save these situations? We must remember that every little baby elephant is very cute. Listen, it's really cute, but it's very hard work. The first 2 weeks, usually it's easy. They look fine. And then after 2 weeks, they've got a dip. Then you work day by day. And that is where your team, because you also need a good team that you can rotate. They've got the knowledge and how to deal with situations. Because the elephant orphans get attached to people. And rotating the people, that should one person go off, that the orphan is still not so attached that he will die of grief, you know, for that person. Even for myself, you know, I can't get too attached with the little ones because I need to move around. I still have, you know, a business to run that pays my bills. And that is where, you know, you also need to have a business plan, because you need to be sustainable. I mean, donations, we really, you know, struggle. We're always at a loss. And at least a lot of these expenses I carry through on the business side, but in the long run it's not sustainable. I can't bring in my children into this business because it won't survive. You know, you know, kind of two of us. So there's a lot of things that you need to take into account. You also need to be objective. I need to stay objective, all of us, because we get attached to these elephants and they are amazing. However, we must always decide what is best for them. So we're moving on as the elephants are heading back home, and I can actually switch around the camera and maybe just share with you some more of our ideas. And with me I've got Last. He's got the backpack for Kanisa, and Zulu, George Zulu with his dreadlocks. So yeah, Last, Scholar, and George Zulu. Okay. So to continue just on, while I was with the elephants and explaining how I decided to build the orphanage, you know, just some of the key objects that I would like to touch base on in developing, you know, the management plan for the orphans, and you know how kind of developed, and you know, but it was really to provide a safe rehabilitation, you know, for the elephants for their whole lifetime, because the long-term well-being of the elephants are of essential importance. if we don't look after the elephant, it creates all kinds of different problems, not only for the elephants, but for us. So their well-being is from huge importance for me. But I also need to accept the responsibility for taking care of these elephants or orphans on behalf of the broader society, and also to acknowledge the society's wish to the expectations and the protections and enhancement of the vulnerable animals' quality of life, which is planned and sustained for their full lives. And I need to take on that responsibility, as I'm saying, for the broader society. So it's not only for myself, it's really on the bigger picture. But you also provide a protective and a supportive environment for the Jabulani rescued elephants, and that you also promote their overall well-being. And also through rewilding, reintegration at the end of the day, where possible. It's maybe not always possible with all the elephants. We've got a fish in that we won't be able to release with his leg. We always need to look after him. But also will need some of older females, for example, some of, like a matriarch, that helps me with the orphans, because I can't do it on my own. It's me and the carers. We really need the support of the elephant matriarch, because they've got all that knowledge. It's knowledge that comes from decades before them, that's transferred from one mother to their children to the next generations of females, and it's stuff that I don't know. I wish I can. I wish I knew, but also need to how can I say, to create a stable and controlled environment, if that makes sense, in the social system of the elephant herd, which orphans then can reintegrate it and enhance their lifetime well-being. That is where, I play. Or not, the matriarchs and the allo mothers play a huge role in that, and then also to reintegrate these orphans into the Jabulani herd. And those reintegration depends from orphan to orphan, and but also to have appropriate rehabilitation options to do that. And I've learned so much through the various reintegrations of the orphans. It changed so much over the time. From 20 years ago, where we reintegrated Jabulani in the herd, and I've never taken into account so many things, and which I learned now through the last reintegrations. And you know what? I know I won't be successful all the time. I know that the world is not perfect, but I will definitely try my utmost and do the best for these elephants. But I also need to develop, a herd needs to develop and establish a long-term plan for the elephant rehabilitation through the rewilding, which includes ways to mitigate the long-term chronic stress of releasing elephants directly into the wild, when as orphans, they don't have a proper social structure. The focus is on building the orphan's ability to deal with a wild system independently, in such a way to also allow the development, that the capacity at a reasonable pace, and within a stable and nurturing system. Now, that's very important, to have that nurturing system. It must be stable for less stress for the orphans as well. And that nurturing way of elephants are so important. So thus, the rewilding of the captive elephants, that takes elephant biology and local context into account. you know, I always think research got such a valuable place, but also with you need to combine academic and experience. The two really goes hand in hand. They can't not work together. And as I just mentioned before, you know, I need to lead by the best practice for sustainable long-term elephant orphan rehabilitation, and contribute towards the development of ethical and responsible industry standards. And that is that people look up to you, that you really, you know, contribute towards this whole development of the norms and standards that are accredited and credible, and that is endorsed by stakeholders. It should be a platinum standard, you know, because these elephants are really amazing, and they really deserve. Sorry, I'm going to use just my other hand because this hand is like breaking. I'm breaking. Okay, I'm far from breaking, but it's getting tired. All right. And then, yes, I also mentioned, you know, it needs to contribute towards conservation value of elephants in a holistic way, by providing the land. You know, it's land, it's all where they can browse in, which I showed you. You know, it's the reserve, and yet by providing the land to this flagship species is, you know, one of the most important aspect. It's that the elephants are out wild every day. They browse. They do things that elephants only can do. You know, in wild situation, they push down trees. They drink water from mud holes. They splash. There's so much things, you know. Nothing is created for them especially, but they share land with other species, and by that they also contribute towards other organisms. It's totally, you know, amazing. But that is also the conservation value. It's not only in the conservation of the species, but it also promoting natural capital and natural land use for the benefit of people. While you actually provide a safe rehabilitation context and a sanctuary for the elephants over their lifespan. You know, it's like it's holistic. It's just, you know, for people to see that and see how it should be for elephants, and even if they come from distressed situations where they're all orphaned, you know, through man-made things, that man created these problems for the elephants, and where we take on responsibility, as I mentioned earlier, for the bigger society. It's not problems that I created, it's problems that people create, and we're all from the same species, we're all people, so we need to kind of rectify the mistakes that we make. Also, you know, just as I've also mentioned, you know, the opportunity of the research and the student training. There's so much value in the educational side, not only from the community, but also internationally. You know, what people can learn from elephants, and as I said, you know, we're not only creating some jobs as well. It's really careers, but it's not only careers just in looking after elephants. It's nature conservation. You know, we are taking students, and they do their practical side of their course with us, and they daily, you know, they learn, but they also, you know, learn more about the elephants. And yeah, anyway, so, you know, the research value and, you know, the education for me is really quite valuable. And then, yeah, as I mentioned, also the career building. But then also one thing that I really are feeling strong about is to leverage the byproducts of the elephants, and creating kind of product, and it also creates jobs in that way. You know, you've got, for example, the dung, where we've got the elephant jabu gin dung, which is your botanical is so it's dung infused, but for people to take back home, and it's a story to take back home as well, about this gin, about the story of the elephant, about elephant conservation. But it also creates jobs at the end of the day for those people who make the gin, and it's made of the byproducts of elephants. You also have the making of stationery of the paper, the elephant dung paper making, the fertilizer. What else do we do? But you know, it's you know, you put value to the elephants by having and utilizing these byproducts and creating jobs at the end of the day. Even the Jabu ladies, I feel very strong about the empowerment of women and people and ladies of women that can work from home. You know, while they work from home, they can also look after their children. We don't always have access to assistance in looking after our children. I mean, I've been a single mother, and it's not always easy. If I didn't have a support network, you know, and I had friends that were amazing, and I had my mother that, you know, stepped in several times when I was traveling and doing marketing for the lodge and knocking on doors, you know, and yeah, you know, it's also time that you miss with your children. Yeah, and I think that is, you know, kind of in summary why I started Hoed. And as I said earlier, I don't know everything. I'm still learning, and I love the ambassadors, you know, that I start bringing in on board, that can create the story on the elephant's behalf, to audiences that we won't reach in the normal situation. Yeah, and I think that for now is about me and starting Hoed. I was nearly thinking that's a snake now. I was like very quiet here. What's moving here?